So today I'm pleased to be with Allie Janes.
Yeah,
And you are founder and owner of Allie Janes Design.
that is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are basically a interior designer, I think.
Basically.
Yeah. So I think people often struggle with the idea of like what is interior design all about? So maybe we could start off by, if you're trying to explain to my 5-year-old niece,
Right.
how would you describe what you do?
So interior design, oftentimes, we were speaking earlier that people think it's pillows and paint colors. And while furnishing is an arm of interior design can actually start much earlier in the process. So we can start as early as the home buying process, project planning, getting ready for construction. Anytime there's sort of a construction element, that's a really good time to bring in an interior designer for vision, looking for opportunities, and making sure you get the most out of your time and investment to do a home project.
And I must say, I was one of those people who thought that interior design was all about choosing design of title and just furnishing. Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things I was interested to learn is that you've got a bachelor in architecture, which I thought just brings a whole new level to what you do. So why is that important?
Yeah, so I started out with architecture. I loved art and mathematics and design, travel. And working in architecture, I really learned over the years through working in construction management, beyond architecture. I came to interior design as a place where I could really touch that last quarter inch and work on the details and all of the end user personal elements of the design.
And it's funny as well, I think a lot of people struggle with what the actual role of an interior designer is, or not the role, but like where it begins and ends.
Right.
And I think, and a lot of people also have the perception that you should only get an interior designer if you're building, a $5 million home, but
Right.
it's not just the super wealthy that can down it.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
The interior design fee will be typically proportional to the scale of your project. So any professional service fee like architect or interior designer, the price would be based on the scope of the work. So we see, people doing a remodel of a kitchen and living room or, a little refresh, bringing in an interior designer perhaps to make some edits to a previous remodel that didn't maybe end up so well, and they've moved into the house and they're feeling the pain points of this previous remodel, maybe that someone else had undertaken, or to just kind of create a new vision there, something that reflects them, their style, maybe the way they want to live or connect to their exterior spaces. It can get very personal, but I think anytime you're touching a house in a construction-based way, you have a lot of opportunities that open up. Okay, if we're gonna take this kitchen out, are we gonna put it back just the same as it was before? Or are we gonna reimagine it and kind of iron out some of the kinks and make this something that works better, looks better, functions better?
So your projects, span, sort of remodels. I mean, obviously good-sized remodels,
Right.
all the way through to new construction. I thought one of the things that when we were talking, I thought was interesting is that one of your sort of passions and specialisms is the helping people. I mean, we live in a beautiful place, we live in wine country, and sort of connect the indoor to the outdoor, because I think that's something that you feel particularly strongly about, and it's hugely important, to this market. Yeah.
There's so much freedom in that, like when people can realize that you can live beyond the walls of your home and you can move into, dining outside, cooking outside. We see this is really a Healdsburg value, I think, for people that live here just in a lifestyle kind of cultural Healdsburg culture way. So we like to connect the outdoors to the inside visually, whether that's through organizing the floor plan that you always at the end of a hallway you're going to see, a piece of daylight or some, we always want to kind of ground you in your piece of land and make you feel connected. Yeah, I think a lot of times we see people wanting to fill up the job site or the project site with a lot of indoor space. But actually, there's so much there's so much opportunity outside.
So, talk us a little bit about interior design, like what it is. I mean, you must have come across all sorts of, misconceptions of what interior design is and is not.
I'm kind of a hybrid model. So a lot of what I'm doing is overlapping interior design, architecture, and construction management. I would say one thing about interior design is that it's really a service. So it's meant to help kind of walk clients through what they're asking their home to do, what exactly, where our goal is at the end, aesthetically, functionally.
Yeah, so we talked about some of the misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe helpful for people who haven't engaged with an interior designer to really understand a bit more about, where would they start if they were trying to sort of, work with somebody like yourself and to get the best possible outcome for themselves?
Yeah. So where we would start typically, if you're, looking at layout changes, bringing on an interior designer really early in the process can be beneficial because we have all the options when you first get started. So starting with a consult, the interior designer can work alongside the architect, general contractor, if you have someone on board for that, landscape architect. So we collaborate as a team. Often I'm working within these other firms as well. We'll usually start off with an interior design consultation, or if you're ready to jump in, you have a project and you're ready to go. The onboarding trip looks like, downloading all your ideas, aesthetic preferences, wants, needs to the interior designer. So we kind of capture all of that for you and then help sift through and create something that's cohesive, maybe storytelling and a bit grounding so that we have something directional, launch pad that we can work from. And so once we sort of get our North Star, I call it, that's our foundational finishes, our project direction, maybe a floor plan, then we jump into concept design and we start working on all of the fun things. Lookbooks by room, we're going to pull fixtures, we're going to touch and feel some of the main key materials you might be using in your project. And as we go through our approval process and get kind of dialed in on where we're headed, then that's when the designer will go through and specify the full project. So every material, piece of hardware, doors, windows, design the cabinets, stone, tile, wood floors. We go through all of that and basically serve up to the client the options, recommendations, and we can make those decisions, keeping a high level view of making sure this is all going to come together and look really great at the end.
Yeah. And one of the challenges, whether you're building a new home or doing a significant remodel is always, in fact, I was talking to a client yesterday. It's like, well, how much is it going to cost? I think so many people, and this is probably more true of people who are building a home. We've got 2 or 3 different lots for sale at the moment.
Yeah.
And the stories are always the same. So people buy a lot, they get super excited about their dream.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to sort of, where the rubber hits the road, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's going to cost way more than I ever thought.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because you work very closely with contractors there. You should try and prevent people going through this whole process and thinking, oh my God, I now can't afford it.
Right.
So maybe just explain a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love this question because it's something that's important and a part of why we take these processes kind of step by step through concept and design development is our next phase. So within this process, when we begin working, it's important, and our process has elements of checkpoints, kind of financial checkpoints, to keep our client educated on this changing market of construction costs and labor.
And you're working with the contractor through this process.
Yeah. To get started, we'll start out working with the client to get some initial ideas down. We're going to need something on paper that we can kind of speak to. So there's a smaller investment there up front. We do have to kind of get something down.
Yep.
But then we like to take it at concept. So before we've gone and done all of the design work to fill in the blanks and get this thing dialed into a construction level, we have we bring a GC and then do our interviews at the concept phase. So this is working with Ken Munson. He's an architect in town. This is an estimate of probable cost, he would call it.
So I like that.
We work together a lot. And so at the end, when we're finishing kind of mid-concept, we'll bring in those contractors to give us an estimate of probable cost. What is the range? Where do we think that this project might land in a budget category? Something for the client to react to when we're still on paper and we have room to either scale up if there's then room in the budget, or scale down.
And at that stage, would you bring in like more than one contractor? Or,
Yeah, we like to interview several contractors because it helps to get a feel for the budget playing field. But it's also, I think, important for clients to choose a contractor who's a good personality fit. You spend a lot of time working together, communicating, and so having just that good camaraderie and good relationship between everyone can make a project so much more enjoyable. And I'll also mention, as far as budget goes, it is so helpful when clients let us know up front what the budget is. I mean, even if it's sort of a range, understanding that maybe it's not disclosed to the contractor as they're pricing the project, but for the interior designer and architect to be able to start drawing or giving recommendations, ideating together with you, it's so helpful to do that under a budget number, so that we can, to the best of our ability, guide the design, within a realistic.
Yeah. It definitely, speaks to me because I do have a confession to make that I've been through a whole process to get a house designed. We have it down, and through the process, the architect that we're working with was sort of adamant that I know we can't bring in a contractor until we've got all the plans and got them all drawn up, and so we gave an original estimate of $650 per square foot. It's like that's what we had in our heads. So we went through this whole process, and then the bids came in, and they're like over $1,000 a square foot to like build. So we were like, it was so I learned so much through the whole process. So I mean, it's really great that you try and do that,
because at that point you've put you've invested a lot of time,
hundreds of thousands of dollars
get into the documents. Now you can't use the documents, so that's what we want to prevent. And we do price, of course, the projects again when those documents are ready, but now we know we're within targeted range. And so at that point, we really don't want to invest that additional energy and then serve up a big surprise to the client, so
I just think it's great. And and presumably, clients must get reassurance, through that process, because at least they know, whatever you're working to, then, it's within their budget.
Right.
So, and also, I guess the other side is you have a contractor who's totally vested in it because they've sort of been pre-selected, rather than going through a dog and pony show.
Dandelion. That's so true. And I maybe did mention, after that concept phase, when we do get the 3 or so estimates from contractors, that is the point when we choose a contractor that we're going to work with, and that contractor becomes a team member and can consult on, we'd like to price this down, or they could actually provide a ton of value, and then they're bought into this budget, this project, and seeing it through.
And then presumably, I mean, we've talked a little bit about new construction and people trying to wrap their head around costs. I mean, we definitely have it when we're even when clients are looking to buy a house. They may see a house that maybe a fixer, but maybe not horrendous, but it needs remodel to sort of suit their lifestyle or whatever. And it's a similar sort of thing. I mean, people buy a house thinking, it might cost $2,000 to do what they do, but actually it costs a lot more. So you could apply the same principle and give people guidance at that stage.
During the home buying process, we follow the same sort of design into construction process with new builds, remodels. It's just really the timeline that changes.
And then for somebody who is thinking about maybe engaging an interior designer such as yourself through a project, I mean, what are the sort of things that they should be asking themselves when they're looking at the type of interior designer that they should be trying to engage with or into?
I think it's important when you are choosing an interior designer, probably the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what is the level of service that you're looking for? Are you looking for a little help so that you can, then say thank you and take it and do a lot of the legwork on your own? Or are you looking for someone to kind of walk you through it and carry a lot of the admin work that comes along with performing all of this work and all the management? So if you are considering bringing in an interior designer, I think to just take a moment and ask yourself if your expectations outweigh either your amount of experience as a homeowner in remodels and construction projects, maybe you've done a lot in the past, or if your expectations outweigh the amount of time that you're willing to put into learning on the job under pressure. I think if your expectations again are outweigh either of those two things, that's a really good time to think about bringing in an interior designer.
Okay, no, that's good to know. So one of the things when we were talking, prior to sitting down here was, how, you can take how somebody sort of lives in a home and then through design just really change their experience with that home. And it sounds quite sort of conceptual, but maybe you could give a specific example.
Definitely. I think that oftentimes it's our spaces, but also the way we choose to use them that can have a huge change and impact in how much contentment and joy you get out of your life. So I think the example that I'll use is in the same space. If you set up you have kind of a place you take your morning coffee, maybe it's sort of in the corner, the room's a little dark, you have a nice view of the door to the garage, you just take your coffee and newspaper there. It's a totally different morning than if you are set up across the room, maybe in a window seat, you've got morning light coming in, breeze crossing by you. That's a completely different morning that can take place, in the same space, but just with a different thought process overlaid on how do we make this space celebrate you and the moments that you want to enjoy in your home.
Yeah. And another, I was just, when we were chatting, you were talking about how people actually live in a home.
Yeah.
And, we go into some of these houses, particularly some of the sort of higher end homes, they have these like massive islands.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd never thought about it before, but actually you made the really good point. It's like, well, actually, if you're entertaining everyone hang around the island, if you can't actually reach over the island to pass a glass of wine, that's like, and it's just like, it's like functionally useless.
Yeah. I think that kind of human scale sometimes disappears in builds that aren't taking personal interactions and the way we actually connect with people into account. And so leaving enough space in the kitchen walkways that someone can be cooking on one side and another person can walk by, or not overscaling the island so that you can't pass your guest a glass of wine. These are really important little micro moments that can completely change the way that you host or live in a space and can make it a lot more personal when you are able to host in that way that like really connects you with your friends and family.
I think that's great example. Yeah. So I know one of the things, I know we've recently sort of done a little bit of work on our house, and my natural inclination is to sort of think, and this is partly the real estate person in me as well, is like, what are the trends that are happening right now? But you actually, you're an anti-trend person, aren't you?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. Anti-trend. I think oftentimes we see people relying on trends because they forget to design for themselves. So they're relying on trends or friends or brands to copy and imitate. And while you can, maybe recreate someone's look, if it's not really authentic to the way you live and the way you express yourself, I think it leaves something to be desired. And then of course with trends, these things come and go. A trend is really, it's anything you can date back to a period in time. So we can all imagine those trends.
But one example you gave me is, I think as a client she was a keen sort of quilter. And when you actually look at the backsplash, it's, it had that sort of feel to it. So I think it's a really good example of how you actually go about personalizing the home to you that means something to you. But also when people come into your house, it's like, that's I recognize that house of that person.
It's expressive. It's like picking out your clothes every day. You want to wear something that makes you feel like yourself, And so, that client, she's a wonderful client and friend, and she's a great quilter. And so we picked a backsplash that was inspired, was kind of quilt-like in its and it's mosaic cutouts, and it's the thing that everyone is drawn to and comments on instantly right when they walk in. And it's always those things that are so personal, and I love that it's really rooted by and inspired by her.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So, you're clearly passionate about what you do. I mean, what do you think is the thing that sort of, gets you out of bed in the morning? What excites you most about, the clients that you're working with and the projects that you're doing?
Yeah. When I first started working in architecture, I was in the office a lot. So I enjoyed in construction management in my next chapter of professional life. Working in construction management, I got out on the site, got to go to meetings and see things happening. Now it's like the best of both worlds. So I really enjoy being there to meet the clients and walk them through what we're doing, looking at progress, walking through with the contractor. I stay very connected with my projects during the construction phase just to oversee the implementation of the design. But I think there's really no better point than at the end of a project when it's all said and done, client will have like dinner or throw a party, and you get to I love to be a fly on the wall and just watch how the scene unfolds, watch them welcome people at the front door. There's, they walk in and you can see just the whole orchestration of this flow and hosting that we've designed from the beginning, and just watching your client be able to host gracefully in a space that reflects them that's the creme de la creme for me.
So if you could give, just before we wrap up, if you could give people who are watching like just one piece of advice or wisdom maybe from this conversation, what would it be?
I would say, I think my piece of advice is, if you are looking at a construction project, it is always, always, always worth it to have a design professional review your floor plans. It's a big construction investment, and so to make sure you get the most out of it, at the very least, have a design professional review that plan and make sure that it's actually going to function the way you want it to. And I think the second thing would just be know what you're asking your home to do. And that will provide, I think, a foundation and a springboard to make some personalized decisions and hopefully design a home that feels just right.
So, if people do want to get in touch with you and, see if you could be a good fit, what's the best way to do that?
Email is the best. My website is up, alliejanesdesign.com, and you can email us at studio@alliejanesdesign.com.
Yeah, and we'll put that information in the description below as well. So.
Perfect.
Well, appreciate your time. No, it's great. Now I've learned a lot. I now know interior design is a lot more than just about fabrics and pillows. So no, super impressed.
Thank you.